Yo, what's up? My name is Gideon Dempsey, and I went to the Alabama Symphonic Band concert on Monday, November 6th, 2023. And I really liked the piece. I just wanted to preface my report with the fact that I thought the sound was very balanced. Like no sections got drowned out, no particular person stood out. In with when they're playing, the sections came together and played perfect, beautiful music. I thought the soloists did really, really well. They had a good solid sound. They had a good solid tone. They had a good solid. They were all in tune, really in tune. I felt like the whole band in general was really in tune. I thought all the soloists, some people they delivered the vibe they had to bring. One solo was like really eerie, and it delivered the tone. And then the solo after was like really beautiful. All of these were really beautiful. This one was like really beautiful. It delivered like from an eerie tone to like a more nature pleasant tone. So like the first piece, it started off really dissonant, and they had a different conductor. They had like the assistant band director for the marching band, and had a really dissonant start. The trumpets delivered the melody. The low brass and the woodwinds were delivering like this conflicting tone, and I felt like the trumpets were supposed to be like the protagonist riding in a battle, and the flutes and the woodwinds and the low brass were like the enemy coming to meet them. Percussion didn't really have much to like deliver to this, and the piece was really short. Like when a piece ended, I was like, "Is that it?" I kind of lost my decorum because I was sitting there. What was that? Like, how was that almost over? And then my sister like elbowed me in the ribs because she came with me, and it was like she was mad because I don't know, I was being too expressive. Second piece, they had like they had the galloping instrument that's in sleigh bells, like that, like they had that instrument. I really like the instrument, so it caught my attention immediately. The tone is really balanced. The woodwinds weren't drowned out. The different sections and instruments take turns, like they all had their own little lick that they would do. So it'd be like, I think it started low brass, and then high brass, woodwinds, like saxophones, clarinets, flutes. And the clarinets and flutes did their own thing at the same time. It wasn't really dissonant at all of a piece. It was like a very pleasant sounding piece, and then it had a dissonant like rise towards the end. And tension was built really heavily until the theme of the piece resurfaced, and it was okay. In the third piece, the clarinets have a really pretty lick that they play, and the flutes and piccolos soon join them with their lick. Low brass plays a different song behind them, and so they're playing two different songs at the same time, but they're really balanced. The woodwinds don't get drowned out. The brass stays controlled. They both deliver these beautiful things, and then they come together for this resolution like that, and has a rise in dynamics, rise in volume, everything. But they have a really good dynamic contrast when they do it. So the highs are really high, the lows are really low. And that's something they did all night too. The entire concert they had really good dynamic contrast, and so I feel like sorry. The two melodies came together. That was really beautiful. The French horns that kind of came through there, and the French horns sounded really beautiful. The alto saxophones and the double reeds, as this piece is coming to a close, played these kind of weird short bursts of like, it's really weird. It wasn't like, it's very airy. There wasn't really much articulation, but it was like, it sounded really. That wasn't exactly what it sounded like, but it was kind of similar. It was. It was an experimental end to that piece. I'll say that I didn't really enjoy it that much, but it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. For the fourth little, I wasn't sure when it was like a end of a piece or an end of a movement. I wasn't paying attention entirely to when, like, because obviously an end of a piece, the conductor gets off of the stand, turns around and bows, and the end of a movement is just when play ceases and then they start with something different. I should have been paying attention to the conductor a little bit more about when he was doing that, so I lost complete track of when movement started or when pieces started. So it's just like fourth piece, but it could be, well, I know when the first piece ended, but the second piece, I'm not sure when it was second piece or when it was second piece to third piece. I wasn't sure when that happened. So the fourth piece, or whatever movement it is in the second piece, this time the flutes start the piece with this repeated lick, and it's really dissonant and really tension building. Builds a lot of tension. And then there's this flute solo that like adds on to like the dissonant sound, and the flute plays this really eerie, but it's a really beautiful solo, but it's really eerie. Like it made my hair rise up. And then the flute solo transitions into clarinet solo. The clarinet kind of takes away the eeriness and it's this really beautiful, placid, like natural sounding solo. I really liked it. And then with the clarinet solo brought in this key shift, shifting keys, and the tone sounded less eerie, and so any sound that came after was a lot less eerie, a lot less dissonant, a lot more really, really beautiful. I love the transitions for the song. In this song, there was like transitions where someone would bang a gong and it would be like, and it would, I guess that's the point of the gong, but it would just take all the energy from whatever piece was before. Well, not piece, but like whatever ideas came before, and it would stop there, and the energy from it would move into the next idea they're going to try to make. And it was really just very well done. The orchestra played last. The collective sound change and dynamic entrance for the whole band on these transitions, and towards the end when they had a really big dynamic shift and it would increase in dynamics, a really big crescendo. Like the entire band came in and it was really nice, like a really good collective sound. The French horns sounded really amazing. The clarinets had a great collective sound, and they when all of this happened, I feel like clarinets sometimes they're kind of hit or miss. Like they'll have like one really good clarinet and then like the bottom don't really pull their weight. But this was a really good clarinet section. They had really good collective sound. And I don't know if they had glockenspiels or if they had vibraphones and they just used really hard mallets. But if they were glockenspiels, those were really talented front ensemble people because they were just moving, going at the glockenspiels. I felt like the first chair clarinet had a really great tone, and her timbre was really nice. She was the soloist. She had a really good timbre. The fifth piece, there's only one piccolo in this ensemble, but he like just ripped to the sound. I could hear him the entire time, and in this fifth piece, he really showed through. The trumpets sound amazing. Like they were muted at some point during the earlier show, and had this really jazzy tone to it. I really liked the muted trumpets, but during this piece, they became unmuted. So you were like, oh, dude, they're not muted anymore. Like, kind of like that. And they had a really good sound. I really like the unmuted trumpet sound after, like, you experience them muted for a long time. The flutes were trading musical ideas with the high brass. And the high brass had this domineering sound, and then the woodwinds would have this, like, underscored, like, sound under the domineering high brass sound. The percussion, they had more of that galloping sound percussion. I really enjoyed that. And then the trumpets became muted again at some point during this piece. And the trumpet, I just like, it's the same thing I said earlier. The transition to a muted trumpet is just such a nice little culture shock. Like this wasn't necessarily a jazz piece, but like they had like diminished chords and stuff, and like the chord transitions I would have at some points where it would be like, it'd be maybe like 16 counts where it would be something jazzy and then would go back to whatever theme it was before. But it was like really cool to have those little like jazzy transitions thrown in there. In the sixth piece, the flute soloist has a really strong sound, really like cuts through everything. It reminds me of that one Pure Imagination song with from Willy Wonka. And this piece was really cool. It had like an electronic thing going on with it where like the band worked and chunked through the piece and got the piece all set in tempo, and then like someone back there, the composer, had set up like this electronic thing that was happening in the background. So it was like an experimental electronic piece, and I really liked it. It reminded me of something like Nala Sinefro, who makes like contemporary ambient electronic jazz. I enjoyed it. There was a tenor sax solo in this piece, and the timbre of the tenor sax was beautiful. It sounded super ethereal. I felt this piece was really composed really well and conducted really well. And the final piece was a cowboy piece, so it's like Wild West. So like there were 3 or 4 movements, I think 3, but there could have totally been 4. And it was like first piece cowboys, second piece like nature. If there's 4 movements, it was like a cowboy infused nature, where like they introduced the ideas of the nature, but like they were transitioning into the 4th movement, which would be like the reintroduction of cowboys. So the 3rd movement was like a mixture of the two. It was really fast paced. They had a drum set player who was just driving the pace throughout the song, the tempo. I got really the tone of the piece changes really quick. Like the tempo changes from fast paced to slow when it brings on the nature part, and then you're like, wow, dude, Wild West is super cool. Like it's supernatural, like untamed, and then like the cowboys come in the last movement, and like drum set player comes back in, and you're like, dang, the cowboys really conquered this. I love the French horn. They have a really trill at the end that sounds really beautiful, and I enjoyed this musical event. You know, it was something that was interesting for me, because I haven't been to a concert since I had performed in one over the springs for high school. So I really, enjoy being back in that element. I like to, attend another one. I didn't really feel like anything was new about this event to me. I just was surprised by how short the first song was, the first piece, and nothing really was that unexpected. I learned, about the focus of the band. I learned about how the conductors weren't really that expressive. Like I feel like they always have like a caricature of like like a caricature of like this really expressive person. The conductors were just like moving through it like super casual. Like obviously they're still directing people, but super casual. So I mean, I just thought it was really interesting. I would love to do it again.